Now, please welcome our keynote speaker, Gerald Rhymes. Gerald was one of the 80 students in KIPP's first class of students, TEAM Academy's founding class of 2010. Thank you, Gerald, for being here today and sharing your story. Woo!
Good evening. I'm Gerald Rhymes, and I'm a member of the founding class of KIPP's first school in Newark, TEAM Academy. You know, usually when a school or an organization sends someone up to speak at an event like this, you're getting that straight A student. They handpicked the kid who never did anything wrong or even got a C. Well, let's just say I'm not that guy. This isn't your average story about the valedictorian. Instead, it's the story of how KIPP sticks with us, all of us, no matter what. The first time I ever heard that I was going to attend TEAM Academy, I cried. These weren't tears of joy. I had just sat through an hour and a half with Mr. Hill and Ms. Grayson telling my parents just how great TEAM Academy would be. I knew my parents wouldn't miss out on a chance to get me out of the school that I was in and into a school that promised as much as TEAM did, so I was stuck. Even though I loved the thought of going on really cool field trips, I couldn't believe the amount of work I would be responsible for, and the thought of leaving behind all my friends and going to school from 7:25 to 5 p.m. and on Saturdays literally brought tears to my eyes. I was so angry at my parents. My first day at TEAM, I pulled up to the school, expecting to see this castle of a school. Instead, all I saw was an old beat-up church. I thought, this school can afford out-of-state field trips, but they can't afford a building? As we walked single file off the bus for the first time, the school felt like a boot camp. The first day of school was about telling us how all of our old habits from our old schools were going to stay at our old schools. We were being taught to track, which meant to always look at whoever was speaking in class. This way of learning was completely foreign to me. I thought, what do I need to look at the speaker for if I can already hear them? The school is stupid. So as Mr. Hill explained that even if your pencil was to fall on the floor, he doesn't care. He still wants all eyes on him. I saw my time to shine. I intentionally dropped my pencil on the floor, figuring I would make every classmate crack up. Before I could reach down to pick up my pencil, Mr. Hill was already sentencing me to detention on a Friday afternoon. This wasn't just any Friday. My family and I were going to Atlantic City for the weekend. And if my mom heard about me getting in trouble at school, I knew she would leave me with my grandmother. That Friday, Mr. Hill gladly dropped me off to my grandmother's house after detention for the weekend. As I got out of the jalopy he was driving, I slammed the door with every intent to stop his engine from running. His car was that old. But after a couple weeks, I began to realize there was a method to the madness. We were being taught to look at learning from a different perspective. We had begun to enjoy it. For many of us, it was the first time we had ever had people tell us we were going to college and really mean it. My 2010 classmates and I grew extremely close with the founding teachers over the years. We could tell the teachers genuinely cared for us beyond the classroom. We would stay after school with teachers for hours. We would hang out all the time, going to dinner, doing different activities, really building authentic relationships with each other. I realized the teachers spent more time with us than they did with their own families. The school was honestly a home away from home. And the teachers were literally like our family. They kept their promises of keeping learning fun, which in turn made us want to work even harder. Although we had been improving, things weren't perfect by any means. I was always a student who was told by teachers that I needed to push myself more because I was capable of much more. I was a C and B student who was capable of receiving A's. Once 8th grade came, the majority of my classmates were starting to get accepted into the most prestigious high schools in the country. With intense help throughout 8th grade from my parents and my teachers at TEAM, I managed to clean up my act, and it was enough to get me accepted to St. Benedict's Prep. So my freshman year of high school at St. Benedict's, they were the #1 high school basketball team in the country, and I was a basketball fanatic. Unfortunately, I let my drive to make the #1 team in the country hinder me from being on top of my academics. The good news was I made it. I made junior varsity my freshman year. Balling. The bad news was I didn't make it on the grade side. So much so that my mother decided she wasn't going to pay the tuition it cost for me to go there if I wasn't going to put in the effort. Her exact words were, if you want to fail, you can go to West Side and fail for free. It turned out my mom wasn't joking. Westside High School was the high school that everyone from our neighborhood went to. My first day at Westside shocked me when I realized how much freedom the students had. It was the exact opposite of Team Academy. Kids didn't do work, so teachers stopped giving work. There was very little learning being done there. Now, this was Westside 7 years ago. There have been great efforts made to change the school's culture since then, but I had tough times at Westside. I honestly stopped believing I would go to college. But I always had the support from KIPP reminding me that I was still going to college. One person in particular was Mr. Lucius. He would sit for hours with me explaining the college application process to me, guiding me in the right direction for which college was best fit for me. Once we narrowed down my list of schools, he edited every essay I wrote, even drove me to my interview at Bloomfield College, which ultimately led to me getting accepted there. Without the constant push from him, I wouldn't have put the same effort into applying to college. My first year of college was a very different experience for me. It was the first time living on my own and moving to my own beat. I knew I was the type of student who needed someone to stay on top of me when it came to my studies. That person was my mother. She was the only college graduate in my entire family, on my mom's side and dad's side. I always took great pride in that because at one point in time, I didn't know anyone else with a college degree. So I knew just how rare I was coming from my neighborhood, and I wanted to be the second person to graduate college in my family. My mom died at the end of the fall semester of my sophomore year, which was fall 2011. That was a crushing blow for me. It really changed a lot as far as family and school. With my mom being gone, I was no longer interested in school. I was discouraged. Even though I still had KIPP right by my side, I was at a point in my life where I didn't even want the help. So I took 2 years off from school and began working and hanging with friends from my neighborhood. That time I spent out of school back in my neighborhood, I lost 3 really close friends. 2 to prison, and 1 was the victim of a murder. These tragic events forced me to realize just how great of an opportunity and privilege school was for me. Somehow, during those 2 years, I managed to stay out of the reach of the long arm of KIPP and the never-ending questions about when will you be returning to school? Yeah. But even though I was dodging KIPP, I always kept a really close relationship with Ms. Cook, who was my 7th grade math teacher. And Mr. Regans. That's my boy. Who was a founding teacher at Team. But of course, even those 2 found some way to sneak a school question in every other convo. They were still genuinely interested about my life and success so many years after they had taught me. This, along with the memory of my mother and the friends that I lost during my time out of school, all helped me to decide to head back to college to take full advantage of the help that I would receive from KIPP. When I returned to school, I came back with a purpose. I was no longer in college for the approval of others. I was actually there because I saw the importance. My eyes were open to the doors that my degree could open for me. I was able to pull my grades up enough to join the greatest fraternity known to man, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. You know. What do you got? All right, then. I had the help of my KTC counselor, Mr. Ford, who was with me every step of the way. He answered every call or text, no matter the time. He checked in with me constantly to discuss school or anything else I had on my mind. With my hard work combined with his continued support, I'm proud to say that I will be graduating from Bloomfield College this May with a bachelor's in sociology. All right. I plan on using my degree to impact the lives of kids who come from neighborhoods like the one I come from, and to shatter any doubts that they may have about going to college, and most importantly, finishing college. Thank you, guys.